Ripple just released Ripple Mint for all their customers. It's their newest product in their tech suite that is all about how institutions are going to interact with RippleUSD. It's closing a huge gap in how RippleUSD-based payments will be automated and how Ripple's customers will effectively use stablecoins for their own needs in the future. Still, at first glance, it's yet another new tool, right? But to me, it's a lot more foundational. And also something that will create stronger utility not only for RippleUSD, but also for XRP, I hope. Definitely a missing piece of the puzzle that I've been really looking forward to seeing released. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Krippenreiter and Ripple Mint is the new tool that we are going to take a look at today. I don't know how you felt about it, but the moment I saw this announcement, I instantly thought about Circle first actually. And the two products that you probably already know and heard about, because they are pretty similar. The two products that I mean are Circle Mint and the cross-chain transfer protocol. So Circle Mint, Ripple Mint, sounds similar, right? And also, again, the cross-chain transfer protocol. We'll talk about this as well in a second. But first, Circle Mint. When we look here, what Circle Mint does is basically the same idea what Ripple Mint will also do. Circle Mint is the fastest and most cost-effective way to distribute, access, and redeem USDC and EURC. So again, distribute, access, and manage. And if you look to Ripple Mint and their announcement, it's basically the same. They say the same thing. Ripple Mint is here, a unified way for institutions to access, mint, redeem, and manage. So mint and redeem here is the distribution part. But for Ripple Mint, that's not all. Ripple Mint does also what Circle's cross-chain transfer protocol is doing and what the CCTP is doing. It allows USDC to flow natively one-to-one between different blockchains with the goal to unify liquidity and simplify user experience. And it's the same for Ripple Mint as well. If we go back to the announcement and scroll down, we can see that Ripple Mint will allow institutions to also bridge RippleUSD across chains. And we will see this in a minute in the dashboard as well, how this will look like. But the idea is the same. You have mint and redeem, so the way you interact in the sense of management, and then also how you burn and mint to move RippleUSD from one chain to another, right? The only difference that you probably already know is that CCTP is actually permissionless, while Ripple Mint is for institutions only. Also for everyone who is able to log in. And we can see this in the Ripple Mint UI. If we go here, how do we log into Ripple Mint UI? User interface. User interface, basically a website. We would need to click here. And if we click here, what we'll see is we see a login interface. And since we don't have a login, we have no access. But let's go back. Maybe just a refresher for everyone who doesn't know, RippleUSD is a stablecoin backed one-to-one with high-quality liquid assets and cash, so USD-based backing, to make it possible to issue and mint RippleUSD on blockchain while backing it with real-world fiat and high-liquid cash equivalents. And what kind of blockchain is supported? We already know XRP Ledger is supported and Ethereum is supported, but because of Wormhole, also Base, Inc., Optimism, Unichain, and also the XRP Ledger EVM sidechain. So a lot is going on there, a lot of blockchains are supported, but the base blockchain will always be XRP Ledger and Ethereum for now. This may change in the future, but for now, these are like the anchor protocols or anchor blockchains that are going to be used. But I hinted at it at the beginning, right, that this is also something that will enhance XRP utility. And this is something they hinted at in the Ripple Mint announcement as well. They wrote about it here in this part, where they say RippleUSD was initially issued on the XRP Ledger and Ethereum with the goal of supporting cross-chain liquidity and institutional financial use cases. So expanding to a lot of new strategies and venues, some of them exchanges, DeFi protocols, payment applications, and emerging on-chain financial infrastructure, such as the lending protocol. I talked about it here. But this expansion is, I think, pretty much misunderstood. Because when you hear utility between XRP and RippleUSD, I think many people always think about XRP on XRPL only. And this is, I guess, not the future, because the future will be multi-chain. So when you hear XRP, you also have to think about XRP being off-chain, XRP utility being on exchanges, on some kind of DeFi protocols, maybe on Unichain, maybe on Optimism, right? You have to think about how can XRP be represented elsewhere as well, and how can it attract liquidity? And for this, you have to issue XRP as well as a tokenized asset on other chains, because XRP itself can only ever exist on the XRP Ledger. The moment you see XRP somewhere else, you always have to think about, okay, who is the issuer behind it? What is the counterparty risk that is going to be introduced with this? Because XRP only exists on XRP Ledger. If you want to see it somewhere else, you have to issue it. Could be FXRP on Flare, for example, could be some kind of wrapped XRP or synthetic XRP on the XRP Ledger EVM sidechain. And this is important because of the DeFi protocol part. For example, Aave on Ethereum, if you want to use XRP as collateral and then borrow RippleUSD against it, or the other way around as well, you don't do it with native XRP, you do it with issued XRP, right? Because Aave doesn't exist on the XRP Ledger, it only exists on, let's say, Ethereum or on Unichain, for example. If you want to do AMM-based liquidity aggregation and swapping and all these AMM liquidity use cases, you have to think about how will these pairs exist. Let's say XRP and RippleUSD. It will exist in issued XRP and issued RippleUSD on, let's say, Unichain, and then be used for liquidity. So XRP in this sense will be a complementary asset to RippleUSD, because on XRPL you will see pairs on the DEX and the AMM as well. You will see credit markets on Aave, for example, on Ethereum, and you will see AMM pools on Unichain. Then, of course, settlement on XRPL, I would say. Swaps. Well, we don't know if with swaps they actually mean futures contracts, because if they mean futures contracts and collateral, I think this has more to do with Ripple Prime than it has to do with on-chain right now. But swaps could also be AMM, so swapping between two assets. If you want to swap from RippleUSD somewhere else, you need XRP. And then payments use cases, of course, could be, let's say, Ripple payments. If you want to use Ripple payments for, let's say, cross-asset currency conversions, you will probably also use auto-bridging, and auto-bridging on XRPL uses XRP, even if it's a permissioned DEX. So this could be a use case where XRP and RippleUSD work hand in hand. Also, we already know EuroP is being used right now with RippleUSD on a permissioned DEX. If XRP is in the middle to make the conversions way better, this could also be a use case for XRP to help RippleUSD, or RippleUSD helping XRP for some more utility. But how does Ripple Mint actually look like, right? We talked about how XRP and RippleUSD will work together and how this will hopefully also enhance and increase the utility and usage of XRP. But how will it actually look like for the institution, for the customer, basically? And for this, we have to go to the stablecoin dashboard. And here we see this picture. I will open it. And on this overview, what you can see is that it's actually pretty basic. you see all these wallets at the top that you can onboard. This could be the onboarded wallets from the institutions, and then all transactions and their types. So the type could be a bridge. In this case, we see the network Unichain to Optimism, or the other way around. It could also be a redeem. A redeem would be a burn, and also a buy. And a buy would be a mint. So minting RippleUSD for usage, and redeeming would be burning RippleUSD to get your fiat back. So these are these kinds of transactions that can happen, and you see the wallets that are being used right now, and you can also export the transactions, let's say, for tax purposes. Pretty cool, I would say. Pretty simple. I think this is something the institutions will like, but I don't think they will actually use this UI. I think most institutions will actually use APYs, I guess, because it's just more programmable, it's more automated. You can integrate this whole process into your own systems with APYs, which is something which you can't do if you actually use this UI, because UIs are basically mostly for retail. But maybe there are some institutions, maybe smaller institutions, that don't need to integrate. They can use these UIs. But how does a wallet look like? This is maybe also interesting, because you can click on details. If we go on the wallet, we can see how a wallet would look like. And we can see again Pretty simple. We see the legal account name, in this case, Stablecoin Team LLC. Shout out to Stablecoin Team LLC. Then the wallet address, Stablecoin Team Test Wallet. Great name. Then the destination tag on XRPL. So this would be, in this case, the XRPL mainnet. For anyone who doesn't know what a destination tag is, think of addresses that are owned by big companies and institutions like street addresses. And then on these street addresses, you have houses, right? Because many people are living in different houses. They have all neighbors, you know. And to manage all these houses, all the people, all the customers that the institutions have, they have to give them house numbers, basically. So if you want to send a package to someone, you don't only need the address, this would be too easy, you also need the destination tag to know exactly who will be the receiver for the package. And this is why a destination tag is important whenever someone is hosting your address. So difference between unhosted and hosted, we will see this here in wallet type. It's not shown there, but in theory it exists. The difference between unhosted and hosted is that unhosted would be a self-custody wallet. Think of Zaman, Joey wallet. And the hosted address would be something like an exchange. And for exchanges, you already know, you also have to put in the destination tag. And again, the reason for this is because the exchange needs to know who you actually are. They simply need to know who the funds will be sent to and how to credit them. And then the last part is the custody provider, also a fake tenant name for test. Simply amazing. So for the test team, I think you did great. You did great with this overview. And then now about the actually redeeming and buying, so burn and mint on RLUSD. We will go to RLUSD, and if we scroll down, we see here buying RLUSD and RLUSD redemption. Let's start with the buying part and with step 1. We can already see here the institutional customer. This could be anyone, this could be a client, let's say from Ripple, who's onboarded, and the institutional customer wants RLUSD now. So the first step is for the institutional customer to initiate buying stablecoins. And buying stablecoins in this sense means depositing USD fiat into the transaction bank. Step 2 is then for Ripple to initiate, not mint, but initiate the minting of RLUSD based on the customer's deposit. So let's say he puts in 100 USD, the issuer stack will then initiate the process of minting 100 RLUSD. But again, it's not issued yet. It's just the initiation of the whole process. And step 3 is then for Ripple to move the deposited funds into the RLUSD reserve account. Why is this needed? Because RLUSD is always backed with USD, fiat USD, and in the redemption process that we will see in a second as well, you will see that from this reserve account, the USD fiat is sent back to the institutional customer whenever they want to redeem their RLUSD for fiat again. So the USD that got deposited into the transaction bank is now being held in the RLUSD reserve account. The fourth step is then all and everything around compliance. So Ripple has to make sure that the customer and its wallet is actually compliant. So they have to check for KYC, AML, and everything in between, anything that's important for Ripple and their compliance stack. And if the compliance check of Ripple passes, so the customer is fine, everything is compliant, and the customer is good to go, then in step 5, the issuer, so Ripple, will actually mint the RLUSD and send them through the blockchain to the customer wallet of the institutional customer. And the blockchain will make this visible because it's all transparent, right? But let's say the institutional customer has enough. He did all he wanted to do. He did some AMM on Unichain. He earned some yield on Aave, for example, and traded on the XRPL DEX, for example, or landed on the upcoming lending protocol, also on XRPL. But then maybe the institutional customer just wants his money back. So the fiat back to the institutional customer, RLUSD going to be burned. This is what the redemption process is for. And the redemption process is, again, now we're going backwards because we already minted RLUSD, now we have to burn it. So step 1 on the blockchain is where it all begins in the redemption process. So the institutional customer requests the stablecoin redemption by submitting a RLUSD transaction on-chain to the Ripple redemption wallet. On the blockchain, this is obviously made visible. So as soon as the funds are sent to the redemption wallet, Ripple will see this because they are tracking this wallet as well. It's monitored. And as soon as these funds are identified, redemption, so the transaction of the redemption is identified, Ripple initiates the fiat redemption. But again, just like last time with the minting, this is also just the initiation. It's not yet earned and the customer still doesn't have his money. So this is the issuer stack where we are right now. And then the fourth step, again, as we said in the buying part as well, is again compliance. Is everything all right with the customer? Is everything all right with the process? If yes, if the checks are passed, then we can go to step 5. And then in step 5, Ripple sends payment instructions for the redemption to partner banks, so reserve account banks. In step 6, Ripple moves the funds then out of the reserve account back to the transaction bank. And then in step 7, the institutional customer gets his money back. So the USD fiat that was deposited in the Ripple USD reserve account is now going back to the institutional customer, settled in USD fiat. That's about it. Ripple Mint, a new tool that will allow Ripple USD to move faster, be a lot more accessible, and also automated for bridging and distribution use cases. On the right side, you can now also watch a video I did about the tech behind Ripple USD. Or if you still have any questions, write them in the comments below. I will read every comment. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this overview of Ripple Mint with everyone you know. I wish you a lovely day, and until next time, ciao ciao.